All right, good morning. It is July 15th, and we are getting ever closer to the end of the 100-day battle. This week has brought some cooler conditions and some moisture to the northern part of the state. I believe the guys in Columbus also received some moisture this week, though maybe not as much as we did. Very much needed. We were on the extremely dry side. Which, for golf course superintendents wasn't necessarily a bad thing because of the ability to control potential problems. However, we still have a couple of issues arising. We had one potential anthracnose problem pop up on Poanua that was stressed. Some dollar spot activity at the farm, Todd mentioned. And the other thing is the forecasts for Northern Ohio for the next 5 to 7 days is a little bit less than delightful, but pretty close to soup. So we've got a lot of nighttime lows at 70 or above and high 80s, low 90s. And so this might be a week where we really might have to make our money. Thunderstorms in the forecast from Sunday going forward. And with that moisture and heat, potential for disease issues to arise will increase dramatically, particularly some of the larger, more difficult ones to deal with, such as brown patch pythium. Soil temperatures are probably going back in our favor. Current soil temperatures up in Westwood, where we have our soil temperature sensors, about 72, 73 degrees, which is a pretty big drop from where it was last week, about 6-7 degrees. And that's on at a 2-inch depth on modified soil, so a mix of sand, soil, root zone when we're talking about that. Online today, we've got Dr. Dave Gardner and the inimitable Pamela Sherratt, who's been glued to the golf, I'm sure, looking at the lovely weather over in Scotland. Kind of close to home to her. Not quite Scottish, as we all know, but, close enough for government work. Dr. Gardner, lead us off.
Good morning, everybody. Allow me to share my screen. So yeah, we had that about 3-week really dry period, and it was starting to get very crispy. And then we had, that record rainfall in Columbus. And so the grass recovered, but then also all of the warm season annual weeds started to pop up. And, out at the research center every year, this has happened every year since I got here. So 22 years in a row, it's like I would put out trials for various companies studying herbicides to control crabgrass. And then I would walk around in June and panic that there was no crabgrass in the area where I put out the trial. And then magically we would have a rain. And then it's like, oh, there's the crabgrass. Well, so we've got it at the research center, which means that you probably have it all around the sites that you're managing too. It might not necessarily be going to seed yet, but it is starting to tiller quite rapidly, right? And so crabgrass all of a sudden has become pretty visible. Now, how to control it? Quinclorac and tepramazone are a couple of the options that are out there. We've done considerable work, and this will actually be one of the demonstration trials if you come to our field day on August 2nd or August 3rd, depending on if you're coming to the OTF or the OLCA field day. But we've been looking at quinclorac combined with a protox inhibiting herbicide, or a bleaching herbicide. So, basically quinclorac combined with either tepramazone, which is Pilex, or mesotrione, which was originally sold as Tenacity. I have not tested this, but I have heard many people this year say that they're having good luck combining quinclorac with Shore Power. Shore Power has flumioxazin in it, which again is another one of those protox inhibiting herbicides, one of those bleaching herbicides. And so really it seems like quinclorac combined with anything that causes weeds to bleach out tends to increase the effectiveness for crabgrass control. Another point about Shore Power this year is that, remember the caution of using that only when the grass is green but not actively growing. This year it's been a little bit safer to use Shore Power, I think, because, it's not, we've not had a lot of excess rain, which means that we haven't had a lot of excess lush growth of the grass, which means that we don't have as much issues with phytotoxicity. But I digress. When we talk about controlling crabgrass, again, quinclorac combined with tepramazone or mesotrione at a half the label rate. We've been getting really, really good results with that. You should also, of course, do things like mow to reduce seed head development. this is an annual weed that comes back every year from seed. So make sure that you're trying to reduce the amount of seed going back into the ground, and then maybe map out those areas and consider the use of a pre-emergence herbicide the following spring. Now, we don't have good data on whether or not one of these combinations works on other annual grasses like goosegrass, which seems like it's becoming more prevalent here in Ohio, or Johnson grass, or field paspalum. And so if you have any of these other tropical grasses that you're having an issue with, or even yellow foxtail for that matter, it seems that either phenoxaprop or topramazone, either of those applied by themselves at the full label rate, that's the recommendation that I would give today. I haven't had the opportunity to test whether or not combinations of these grassy herbicides might be more effective for the control of one of those other grasses. Now, remember that foxtail and goosegrass are annual grasses, but the Johnson grass and the field paspalum are actually perennials. And so what can oftentimes happen with the field paspalum, for example, is that you can get really good control of the top growth, but then the rhizomes don't get completely killed. And so that comes back in the spring. To put it another way, I've got a couple patches north of our research greens that every year I can knock those back to the ground really, really fast, but then they come back the next spring because the rhizomes stay alive underground. So this is one that if you're having a problem with, you need to keep on it, not only control it at this time of the year, but check it in the spring to see if you're going to need to make a repeat application. Okay. The other one that we're starting to see a lot more of now that we've had a little bit of rain, of course, is yellow nut sedge, maybe even the occasional false green kailinga, but sedges, right? And so if you have a sedge issue, there are a variety of sedge herbicides out there. So halosulfuron, sulfentrazone, imazosulfuron, or pyrimisulfan. Any of these products work very, very well. They are systemic herbicides. Bentazone or Basagran is another option, but remember that that one is more of a contact herbicide. But again, sedges and annual grasses are all of a sudden quite visible in the landscape, and we can thank last week's downpours for that. Ed, that's all I've got.
Thank you, Dr. Gardner. Pam Sherratt, take away.
Good morning, everybody. I just wanted to give a couple of updates. So the turf camp last week was phenomenal. We had 17 youth come in, middle schoolers come in. We're going to have a conversation before next year about whether we venture into the high school group, and we'll talk about the pros and cons of that. But we had a great week. We went to Muirfield Village Golf Club. We went to OSU Athletics. The PGM guys were involved. They built putters. They got to know about playing quality on golf courses. They did some testing in Ohio Stadium. They got some science from our professors here at Ohio State with Dr. Gardner and Dr. Petrella, Dr. Danny Berger, Dr. Shetler. Dr. Shetler's always fun. He had them looking at grub butts and pinning insects, and they had a fantastic time. So we're still continuing this effort, and I wanted everyone to know in Ohio too that we've restarted the quiz bowl for high school and career center students in Ohio, and so we're really pushing for that competition to continue this year at the Ohio Turfgrass Conference. So if you know of a high school ag program that does turf, or you're involved in the career center that does, please do reach out to us and be involved in that. Our goal obviously is to get youth interested in turfgrass science as a career, and hopefully get them to do a 2-year degree at ATI with Dr. Nangle and Petrella, and then to finish up with a 4-year, or come down to us at Columbus for a 4-year degree. So just work with us on that. And then I wanted to ask if anyone's using wetting agents out there. I know that the GCSAA have stated that 98% of golf course superintendents use wetting agents, and that stands to reason with the issues with low cut turf and localized dry spot, etc., and the stress, as you said, Ed, during the summer of managing with those high maintenance surfaces. There really isn't I really don't have my finger on the pulse when it comes to wetting agent use in sports field management. And I've been interested to look at novel approaches to using them, whether it's new sod installation in a goal mouth or divot mixes. Was talking to Nate over at Muirfield Springfield last week, they use a granular wetting agent in their divot mixes on the driving ranges. I think that's a great opportunity for sports field managers to use it to sort of look at these novel approaches for using wetting agents. A lot of the parks and rec guys probably can't afford full field applications, but I think we can start to look at some more novel approaches. So join our turf Twitter conversation today on wetting agents. If you're around, Grassy Brit is my handle, as you know. I'd welcome those comments and maybe look at doing some research on that. I think we could do some pretty neat extension research projects on that. And then I just wanted to give a plug to the field day coming up August 2nd. I will be doing grass ID. I actually did grass ID with the STEM camp with Dr. Gardner last week, and Dr. Gardner has a great key, a really nice, understandable, easy to use key on how to identify turf grasses. And I actually had a couple of turf managers steal a couple of those handouts, Dave, who were going to take it back to their golf course, and they said, we need to get this online and this needs to be more accessible because grass ID, whether it's weedy grasses or desirable grasses, is something that unless you do it all the time, it's easy to forget how to do that. So we'll be doing we'll obviously be highlighting research at field day, but we also are going to have some of these hands-on educational opportunities for turf managers too. So August 2nd is OTF/OSU field day. August 3rd, I believe, is the Ulca field day, both of them at the Turfgrass Research Facility there on North Star Road. Hope you can make it. It will be lovely to see you post-COVID. I'm looking forward to see everybody's smiling faces and learning from each other. And yeah, that's all I've got, Ed. Thank you.
Thanks, Pam, much appreciated. And if you do come to field day, you can also ask Dr. Gardner the backstory of how we put that key together, because that's equally interesting, but you must come to field day to get that backstory. All right, if there are no further announcements, we're all married and no more fighting. Okay, folks, thank you for your time today. If there are questions, feel free to reach out. Most people are commenting with questions on the YouTube video. If that's how you want to do it, we will be able to answer relatively quickly on that. From the standpoint of next week, like I said, batten down the hatches. This might be a bit of a bumpy ride for the next 5 to 7 days. Thank you.